I do not mean to brag, but you are about to learn from one of the best. I have been hiring the best talent across the country for the past 8 years. Yes, I mean that. Actually, I am going to brag a little bit, it's real good. But no, for real, I'm going to tell you today, using my knowledge as a recruiter for the past 8 years, about how you can become a recruiter and really what you need to know about what recruitment is to be successful. So let's get into it. Woo! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Mercedes. If you don't know me, I'm the Career Love Coach, and I come onto this channel and wherever else you find me on social media to help coach Black women into meaningful, successful, badass careers. And I definitely have a personal goal to coach 1,000 women into their dream career path. So today I'm sharing an amazing career path which happens to be my own, in human resources, and specifically how to become a recruiter. So today we are talking about all things recruitment. Whoop! Forgot my notes. So we're going to be talking about what do recruiters do. We are going to be talking about the different types of recruiters. We are going to be talking about I feel like I'm missing one. Other areas that maybe you may not know what recruiters do, but sometimes this falls into their job duties. Because you know how they be doing. Stick it in there. Different types of skills that talent acquisition or recruitment professionals need. 5, how to assess whether a recruitment role would be a good fit for you. And 6, how to transition into recruitment with a plan. Okay, so let's get into it. So honestly, sometimes I forget that some of y'all, you're new here, right? I'm still growing. I'm still learning. But if you don't know my story, essentially I did my master's in management. And right after I finished that, I transitioned into an HR internship position. And during that time, it was very heavily focused on recruitment. I really helped to create that company's recruitment practices and policies and procedures. And again, yes, hired some of the best talents in the country. Talent in the country. So it was a lot of technical and admin, highly skilled positions. And then I transitioned into a new role as an executive recruiter. It was kind of like a search firm type feel, even though I was an in-house recruiter, which we'll talk about that. And then after that, I became a manager of a recruitment team for both an operational team and more of a strategic, passive recruitment team. And then after that, where I am now, I have transitioned into DE&I, but it has a lot to do with recruitment and inclusive, diverse, equitable recruitment practices. So we'll talk about it, love, but I just wanted you to know that that's my career path. I have loved it, and I think it's a great career path for everyone, but definitely my Black ladies, okay? It's a great career path because it offers you a lot of mobility and growth. It gives you a lot of unique challenges. Often there's a lot of representation already in the field. There's a lot of Black women highly compensated and high up there for you to be able to be in organizations where you're not breaking the glass ceiling all the time by yourself. Okay, cool, let's keep going. And so I always have something amazing and great to share at the end of this video, so make sure that you stay. I'll be telling you about how you can transition and create a transition plan in 90 days to become a recruiter, a talent acquisition baddie, a recruitment queen. Okay? All right, cool. Let's get started with number 1, and that is, what do recruiters do? I think that sometimes people have a very low level understanding. I don't mean that in a lot of ways, but I should say maybe surface level understanding of what recruiters do and what the day-to-day actually looks like. And I think the best way to think about it is that recruiters move a candidate through a recruitment process, right? Or a recruitment cycle. But sometimes it's very surface level, they're just managing a system, and sometimes they're really into the nitty-gritty or the day-to-day of that, all of the screening, all of the interviewing, all of the recommendations. So I think the best way to think about it is that some recruitment roles may include more or less of all of these things. It could be a mix. So really think about this holistically as you consider and move into the career path. So yeah, let's get into it. So I would say that there's a key pieces here, right? Sometimes recruiters are actually identifying candidates who are not in a candidate pool to apply for a position, right? They're reaching out on LinkedIn, they're using connections, networking, whatever. They're going out and proactively reaching out to candidates. So they may be identifying, figuring out a way to attract those candidates and then engaging with them so that they can hopefully enter into the recruitment process, because this comes before that even happens. Then once they're in there, they're evaluating, potentially selecting, and even hiring candidates. Like some recruiters actually place candidates without anybody else reviewing them, which I think is a crazy thing, but it happens sometimes, right? So just gotta think about it, okay? So with all of that being said, there can be so much that comes into your role as a recruiter or a talent acquisition professional, right? And so it's just kind of give and take in some of these areas. So let's talk about this process, right? Because even though that's high level, there are specific steps in the process that you may be taking somebody through. Again, depending on the company, they may be asking you for more or less of these things. But let's start off with number one, which is posting the position. So, and you may be engaged in actually helping to write that position or not, but basically, right, you have to have a job posting for applicants to apply to. So you're often using an applicant tracking system to post that job, send that job out to different job boards, and then hopefully collect the resumes. Some companies that are maybe smaller, newer, they don't have a lot of recruitment, but they do have enough where they need somebody to do recruitment practices or policies, procedures. Let's go with procedures. Sometimes they don't even have an applicant tracking system. They're just send us your resume. So, there's that too. Nothing wrong with it. You gotta work with what you got where you are. So keep an open mind about that. And doesn't mean they're a bad company. It just means you got lots of room to grow with them. Okay, number two, you may source for candidates. So if you're not familiar with what sourcing is, that's kind of what I just described of you're going out there to identify candidates. So it's kind of like you're sourcing a candidate is what people say. So for instance, from that position description, maybe you're like, okay, we need 10 years of experience and we need them to be in this industry or this field or have this type of experience, right? Then you're going to go out there and look for candidates and figure out where they are and contact them, right? And that could be like a LinkedIn recruiter. That could be to go to a job board. That could be to go to a specific fair. There are so many different ways that you can potentially reach out to candidates. There's something that's called poaching, and that's where you go to your competitors and you reach out to those candidates. You come work for the competitor, okay? But so depending on who you are, that could be really fun. I really love sourcing because it was kind of a great way to get out there and find cool new talent. But yeah, it's a thing. And then depending on your organization, you may be actively engaged in actually encouraging those applicants to apply. So you may send them an email, give them a call, have a chat with them, tell them about the position, encourage them to apply, share different things about the company, the benefits, kind of like a little salesy. And that's where you're doing that engagement piece and hopefully attracting them. So I'm not going to get into nitty gritty process of does a position close and how long you should you post it, right? Because that's going to be so company specific. But next is the screening process, right? So let's say you've got a good round of applicants. So then what comes next, right? You're going to go through those applications. You're going to screen through them. Some companies do this different. They want the recruiter to screen and send them. Sometimes they're just compiling it and sending in without them being screened. There's so many different ways to do this, but essentially there is a screening process of the resume and any other application materials such as questions or cover letters that come next. Cool. Then it's kind of what we call this process of narrowing the pool. You may have heard about the applicant funnel. This is when you start taking candidates from the top of that funnel, which is the application, and you start narrowing it down to you get a finalist, right? We've been in recruitment processes, so we probably know what that looks like, but we're using our recruiter words here, okay? It's a funnel. And then next we are going to phone screen them, right? So probably, maybe not, but Call them. You have a couple of screening questions. You just want to like make sure that generally they're in alignment for the job. So it might be like start date, base skills, confirming that, background, salary, whether or not there's a particular aspect of the job that they may or may not like maybe it's travel, or it is a remote job. Maybe somebody doesn't want that. Not me, but whatever. Okay, sorry. So essentially, like, you're kind of screening out candidates based on some preliminary things that are important for the job. Cool. Next is interview. Some people have 1 interview, 2 interviews, 3 interviews, 5 interviews, 10 interviews. Like, don't be that company that's like lots of interviews, okay? Like, 2 is probably enough. Okay. But right, so that's when you start to get others involved, right? You may be engaged in an interview. You may have like a panel interview. You may have one with the hiring manager, like the director of a unit. There's so many different ways that an interview process can be structured, and we're not going to get into that in this video because I'm not teaching how to be a recruiter. I'm teaching from a job search perspective so that you have enough information to move forward. But that's what happens next, okay? Go to LinkedIn Learning or something. Woo! Or become my coaching client, whatever. Okay, so after that interview process, usually there's like a reference check process and a background checking process, potentially. Some companies do this earlier, some companies do they later after an offer is granted. But essentially, right, you are going to ask that candidate for a list of references. I have feelings about this, whatever, we're not talking about it now. Or you're going to go out there and just check their references. Ones that look like they could be references based on what you can find online. Anyway, all the feelings, all of that being said, is you're just wanting to get a better understanding of that applicant from others who've worked with them in the past. And that's what the purpose of that is. Then it's offer, right? So some companies do a verbal offer and then a physical offer. Some just send a physical offer. If they're just not doing physical offers, that's probably a concern, but but yeah. And then the onboarding process, that's an interesting one of those skill sets that is kind of different per company. Like in some companies, recruiters actually start that onboarding process and they have they're the point of contact for that employee, submitting their paperwork, their I-9s, their background checking information if it's at that point. Making sure that any other like direct deposit and contact information, whatever general paperwork needs to be done at the onboarding process, like they're doing that potentially. And then a lot of times at this time is when the position will close. Some companies will close a position before they fill it. Some of them will wait until the end. But that kind of concludes your process. And then you want to disposition candidates. I like it to be throughout the process, like as soon as you find out a candidate, anyway, I'm training now. Anyway, as soon as you find out a candidate is not the right fit for the position, that you're giving them a call or sending them an email. Ghosting is not it. I don't know why we're still having this conversation in 2023, but let your candidates know that they weren't selected, okay? Cool. Okay, so as if I haven't already jam-packed enough in your brain, we're going for number 2. We're only 2 out of 6. Bless your heart. If you need a break, just pause it, come back, okay? Make sure you like and subscribe. That way you can come back. Okay, number 2 is there are different types of recruiters. And so we're going to go through this so you have a good understanding. One's not better than the other. I have some feelings because of my role, but it's fine. But really, no. All of these are great career paths. I just have some personal feelings. You can have your own personal feelings. But let's go from the top. I have 6. Woo! I mean, and there's subsections of this. Okay. So one is understanding the difference between an in-house recruiter, a third-party recruiter, or a contract recruiter. Like some of these may make sense if you know, but in-house recruiters are recruiters who are employed and are usually like internal to the company that they are recruiting for, right? So yeah, I work at I don't know, what's the company? What do they call it? I don't know. Mercedes Swan LLC. You're working for Mercedes Swan LLC. Mercedes Swan LLC employs you. You recruit for all of their positions and blah, blah, blah. Okay? Third-party recruiters are often called like search firms or, mostly called search firms, executive search firms, whatever. And they are where they've contracted with a company or multiple companies to hire a particular position. Usually these are specialized, higher level, executive level roles, or the company has chosen to outsource their recruitment process so they don't have to do it in-house. But that's really how that works, right? And so usually that means you may be working with multiple clients. Sometimes there's some sales responsibilities. So if you don't like the sales aspect, then be careful with that. But essentially, you're external to the company. You're helping them bring in talent. And you're kind of like that liaison, right? Sometimes it can be a little messy. But hey, recruitment's messy in general. And then the other one is a contract recruiter. So there are a lot of people out there that they are more like freelancers. They don't really have, they're not with a firm, but they do work with companies to make certain hires or to fill a certain number of their positions. And it's not really meant to be like an employee. So if you have if you see any contract roles that are really like that, I don't mean like temporary contract for a company. I mean like you're really working for like an external, you're like working as an external business, which is also possible, okay? And a lot of people have successful businesses doing that. Okay, number 2, it's more of like the level or function that you're recruiting for, but sometimes that's really important to know because they may be looking for different skills. So a couple of the ones that I called out were executive recruiters, which again, I said I've been doing that. Technical recruiters, never mind, I think I've done all of this. Okay, technical recruiters, campus recruiters, I've done that too. DE&I, like they're specific to hiring diverse talent, engaging diverse talent, and then like number 5 is international, where they're specifically working with talent that is, like maybe if you're based in the US and like maybe you're specifically working with attracting or engaging talent that's coming in from, globally. So those are a lot of different things, okay? But it doesn't mean, again, that one's better than the other. It just means like these are different options and one of those may appeal to you or not. Okay, number 3, the level of the role and the function. So there are sourcers out there. Sourcers, they do not do the other pieces of the recruitment process. They're all front end. So they just go out there and identify candidates. They're like, okay, here's 500 candidates that I found. Not 500, that's a lot of candidates. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I found 500 candidates out there and I think they're a fit for this role. I may reach out to them and engage them, or I may just give that list to somebody else for them to do. But there's a lot of different recruiters that only do that part. They don't do any of the screening. They don't do any of the interviewing or anything else. They're just proactively reaching out. And that sometimes is called talent acquisition. And sometimes recruiters are called talent acquisition people, okay? So it's like the wording can kind of change a little bit, but essentially that's what that is. The next one is like operational. So I told you that there's some people that are just managing the process. So for instance, they're just posting the position, they're just reviewing it, they're just moving candidates through a process like in a system, or they're just doing the like systems approach to things sometimes, or moving candidates around or scheduling things, but they don't actually do any of the strategic pieces like creating a job description or creating interview questions or evaluating candidates and making recommendations. So it's a completely different piece, and it may be an easier pivot for you if you are more from an operational standpoint or more admin to transition that way. But again, not one is better or worse than the other. Number 5 is full cycle. You'll hear people say full cycle, okay? So full cycle means that the recruiter does all of those things that I mentioned at the beginning, and sometimes they don't, right? But when you hear full cycle, that means everything from posting until onboarding. That's when you're engaged in that process, okay? And then 6 are consultants. So I was in a consultant position where I was not always actively engaged in evaluating and selecting the candidates or personally interviewing the candidates, but I was advising with others on best practices for recruitment. I was telling them about, how to engage and potentially organizing some piece from a consulting standpoint, but I was not necessarily actively engaged in the recruitment process, which again, could be in-house, could be third party, could be a contract, right? Could be technical. And it doesn't mean that all of these things are separate, right? It's just different dimensions of what it means to be a recruiter and how those all intersect. So I want you to know what those words mean. But again, you could be a sourcing consultant, okay? Like, I know, it was a lot. You got this. Hello, I think you should subscribe. Did I sound good? That's probably totally off key, but if you want to stop singing, you'll subscribe. I'll keep singing, but like, I want you to be here for a while. So subscribe, like, share what you're thinking in the comments, okay? I want to hear from you. I love you. I mean, I don't know you. Like, that's kind of weird. I have deep affection for you across the internet, weeps, interwebs. Okay, back to the video. Okay, boo. So I told y'all that, like, I told y'all a lot about recruitment and a lot of the different functions, but there's still more that can be part of your job as a recruiter. I know, it's just like, we're doing a lot of stuff over here, which is why I was talking about the growth. Like, there's so many different challenges and ways that you can grow. So here are a couple of the other areas that some recruiters are engaged in. Again, it's not across the board, but sometimes it does happen, and they're kind of fun. So one is compensation. So some companies have it structured where their recruiter actually goes out and does a compensation analysis. So they go out, look at the market. They may have a system, or I don't know how else they're doing that equitably without having a system. But anyway, they go out there, evaluate what the market is paying for a job, and then they make a recommendation, or they provide a range for, what a position should be offered based on skill sets and a variety of other things, okay? And so sometimes you can be engaged in that. Okay, number 2 is assessment. So an assessment is not just an interview, right? It kind of goes above and beyond that. So sometimes people, they have like math assessments or skills assessments, like you might have heard of typing assessments, personality inventory that will tell you like how you jive with the team. Some of these are interesting, okay? I'm not going to say that they're not good. They can be good if they're used in the right way, but essentially you may be responsible for administering that assessment or helping somebody else, like maybe advising a hiring manager how to administer that assessment so that they can assess a candidate, right, based on that assessment. I'm saying ass a lot. Okay, number 3, negotiation. So sometimes when an offer is granted to a candidate, the hiring manager will negotiate with that candidate. However, a lot of the times recruiters are doing that. So they say, here's the offer that was provided. The candidate comes back and says, no, how about this? Whatever. So sometimes you do need to have ways that you can tactfully negotiate. I think it's a key skill for recruiters to have an understanding of how to professionally communicate with others, even when like they may ask questions that you don't know how to answer, or maybe they have, maybe they've pressed on a particular issue that you're not able to help them with or provide, Sometimes it's not your fault that you don't know those, okay? And so sometimes just being uncomfortable, having those challenging conversations or negotiating with candidates is like a good thing to have. Okay, cool. 4 is strategy. So sometimes as a recruiter, you're not just expected to like find candidates and move them through a process. Sometimes you're asked to be more strategic. So what do we need in terms of the workforce in the next year? And how can we plan for that? And what kind of strategy can we put in place to make sure that we have the right types of positions, we have the types of candidates that we need in our docket or whatever, to make sure that we have like staffing, appropriate staffing for the next year, right? So some recruiters are actively engaged in that. It's not always fun. It's kind of stressful a little bit, but like you get to see the fruits of your labor, and that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's now, in number 4, talk about our talent acquisition skills and things that I think that are super important for people in a talent acquisition or a recruitment position. And I say that to say, like, yes, I have hired quite a few recruiters, okay? So the first one is relationship building. You, especially if you are going out to pull in candidates to encourage them to apply, right? You have to build a relationship with them. They should want to trust you. They should like talking to you. They should feel like you're knowledgeable and sharing great information about the company. And you should be able to relate to them, and they should feel comfortable asking you questions. And you should also be able to build relationships with those who you're working with internally as well, because like a hiring manager may be leaning to you for guidance or for feedback or whatever, or you want to be able to advise them in the right way so that they don't do like illegal stuff. Okay. And so relationship building is really important. 2, critical thinking and analysis, especially when it comes to assessing candidates, right? Like being able to say, what does the company need and what do we need in a great candidate, and pulling those two together are so important. And understanding that a job description doesn't always answer that for you. Like you have to be able to assess what a candidate's telling you or doing or saying and what that actually means and what that might mean for who you're hiring, because not being able to do that is a great way to hire a terrible candidate. Okay, there is communication, right? If you can't communicate with candidates, if you can't communicate with your hiring managers, you're going to have problems, right? And that's going to be the first way to break trust, or for them to not be able to work with you well. You need to be able to communicate what's going on, when, what you're doing, how the candidate pool is performing, how you're moving candidates through the process, especially if they're leaning on you to screen, okay? So important. Number 4 is sales, actually. I know, like, I'm not a salesy kind of gal, but also at the same time, like, you have to be able to sell why working at your company is a great place, or why your benefits are great, or why this position is a great position. And that could be from the sourcing perspective of going out there and reaching out to candidates, or that could honestly just be during the interview process where they're asking you questions because you're that first person a lot of times that those candidates talk to. So if they don't like or trust you, or you're really not able to sell them on the position, like you can't fill your position, right? And so, yeah, be intentional about how you're packaging yourself as a reflection of the company, because you want to fill your position, right? So salesy, yay! Number 5, I think I've kind of touched on this a lot of ways, but emotional intelligence, right? When we're talking about analyzing an interview and how people are interacting in an interview with you and others, you need to be able to, 1, yes, connect with them, because again, you're a representative of the company, but also to be able to assess, like, what are those cues? What's going on in an interview? Like, what does it mean when they're saying certain things, so that you can evaluate that, because that can really give you help you decide whether you're hiring a really great candidate to the company or a really bad one. Okay, number 6 is technology. So it doesn't mean that you have to have experience with HR technology, but the more experience that you have with technology in general will help you to come up to speed quickly, right? You might have to work in an applicant tracking system where all of the candidates' information is housed and their applications are housed, and you move the candidates through that process. But you also may have to work with the HR systems. You may have to pull reports and data and use Excel, and just being able to be comfortable with technology is going to be so helpful for you, okay? And 7 is organization, right? Like, I've worked anywhere between having like 1 rec and having like 30 or more. No, I think it's more. Like, I think it's maybe like 50. Like, it just really depends. And so depending on the volume or what's going on, or maybe even the complexity of what kind of position you're working on, you have to be able to be organized. Like, you have to know where your candidates are, how many positions you have open, when you're supposed to have interviews, like what the timeline is for a hire, how many people you need to hire, like that staffing perspective. There's so many different ways to think about this, but essentially, be organized. It's going to help you a lot. Okay. Number 5, I have a lot of people that are like, you know what, I'm really thinking about recruitment, but I'm not really sure if it's like for me. So I'm going to give you some tips for whether or not it'll be a good fit for you. So number 1 is that you like engaging with other people. Like, you genuinely like getting to know the skill set, the background, connecting with others, and even advising people in the process, like hiring managers that need to kind of, and I say that saying that I'm actually an introvert. And so it doesn't mean that you have to be an extrovert to like this job. It just means that you like connecting with others and kind of moving them through a process as you build that relationship, right? Number 2, you like process, okay? You like the idea that you're going to work with somebody or a group of people from the beginning of a recruitment process, whether that's the hiring managers or the candidates, and you're going to walk with them and work with them and help them through the entire process. And you like that. 3, you like to be creative or strategic. Like, people think like recruitment is just churning people through a process, and sometimes it is, but more likely than not, in this current dynamic and how talent is hiring and finding talent is challenging, and the ever-changing job market, okay, because I know sometimes it's not a hard time finding talent. Anyway, so that being said, like, sometimes you gotta think creatively. Sometimes you gotta think out of the box. Like, how can I get this type of candidate? How can I, figure out how to get this candidate to want this job? How do I create the right type of interview questions or the right type of interview process to ensure that I'm hiring the best candidate, right? So you do have to be really creative about that sometimes. You like communicating. That's number 4, okay? Communication is key. Number 5, you do like technology, and you do like seeing like the combination of people and technology, right? Because that's super fun too. And people data potentially. And 6, you like kind of the ability to evaluate people. So have you ever been like, oh yeah, I like figuring out how to figure out like what people are good at and what they're a match for, and bringing those two things together, analyzing, you're a good fit for talent acquisition / recruitment. Okay, cool. Okay, number 6, we are getting to that 90-day plan, but here are some tips for you to transition before we get to that 90-day plan, because the 90-day plan is really about like a process to transition. And this is about some ideas to think about as you're creating that 90-day plan. So 1, don't be afraid to look at some entry-level recruitment roles. I have people say like, oh, I can't do an internship because I can't be paid, or I won't be paid enough. Like, you don't know that. You don't know that. There's some really competitive paying internship positions that are higher up, like leadership type recruitment positions. And also, yeah, a lot of them are paid. So just think about that, right? Keep your mind open to what the possibilities are and go for it. Also, I will say that, like, internships aren't the only entry level type of role. Like, sometimes there's assistants, sometimes there's specialists, sometimes there's coordinators, and make sure you're using both recruitment or talent acquisition, sometimes even talent, okay, to find a variety of positions. So keep your, what is this called? Open. Do that. Okay, because titles are misleading. 2, package your transferable skills, right? You need to really understand a lot of the skills that I've mentioned here, as well as some of the more hard talent acquisition recruitment skills, and how those really connect with what you've currently done. You need to be able to consider how you've done that in your career and really make sure that you've ingrained that into the way that you talk about your background and experience. Number 3 is skill build, okay? So go out there and watch trainings about recruitment, job shadow, do some cross training, do some research, do newsletters, webinars, whatever. Like, do it so that you can learn more. And the number 4 is get connected with people in the industry. Whether or not you're ready to start your job search now, even if you don't think you're going to do this from a year from now or whatever, like, it's still really great to start to build those connections, because you're going to learn so much just by being involved in like your SHRM local chapter, or going to a networking event for other HR professionals, or even community groups and things like that, for you to just get exposure to people who could be in the field. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna apologize because this video is so long, but I'm so passionate. So I'm sorry it took this long for me to get to the 90-day strategy, but like, I promise this is gonna help you, right? You want to be able to stay organized in your job search. And what I hear from so many people who really want to move into HR or recruitment is that, truthfully, they feel so overwhelmed. They don't know what to do next. They don't know how to do that. So I'm going to give you a strategy for you to be able to make this transition in 90 days. It's super simple. So pull out your piece of paper, but also there will be a link below for you to download this entire strategy. Okay? Cool. So number 1 is that in the first 30 days, you want to do this 1 per week. So the first one is identify a title. So I mentioned that already. Like, there's so many titles: assistant, interns, specialists, coordinators, leads, whatever. There's so many different aspects of that. So I want you to get really clear on which title or what type of recruitment function you're going to be in, because you need to be clear to move to the next steps. Number 2 is once you've got clear about that, you're going to start to research those career paths, right? You're going to start to say like, oh, okay, I'm going to look at some job postings. I'm going to go research what skills are needed. And I'm going to have a really great understanding. You're already starting that process today by watching this video, okay? But you're going to continue to get great understandings of this. And then number 3 is that you're going to conduct a gap analysis, right? This can only be done if 1, you're clear, and 2, you have done your research, right? So really follow this path, right? And by the 3rd week, you should be able to say, you should look at all the research that you found, all of the skills and experience that is needed for you to become a recruiter, and make a list and say, this is what I do have, and this is what I don't have. And that's what your gap analysis is. Write it down, and then go to week 4, which week 4 is to create a professional brand. You're like, professional brand? Where did that come from? You've done your research and you know already how your skill set aligns, right? Because you've done that gap analysis. So what then you're going to do is say, of all the things that I know to do, I'm going to write stories about how I've done this as it relates to recruitment. Like, don't talk about random things. Talk about it as closely as you can to recruitment. So again, if you've been a salesperson, reshape how you're talking about that and talk about it as though you were like, moving a lead, like a recruitment lead through the process, right? Use those words. There's so many creative ways that you can really re-envision your brand. Okay, so all of those things can happen in the first month. You're just gonna make a plan, and you're going to make sure that you stick to each one of these topics each week in your first 30 days. Cool? Now in month 2, we're actually going to start with writing your resume bullets. No, I did not start with writing your resume. You're actually going to write your resume bullets. So that list that you actually created, that was a list of all the skills that you have, and you then outlined your transferable skills. You're going to start to create resume bullets based on only those things, right? You do not want a bunch of other things from other careers not relevant to recruitment on your resume. And that's why it's important to recreate brand new bullets for the career and the path that you want, not what you've done before. Don't copy over things. Write your new bullets. It's going to be great. That's your first week. And then after that, then that's when you are going to create a new resume, not an old one, a new resume. And you're going to start to put those bullets in, and then pepper in your other stuff, your contact information, your skills, your education, your, what is that called? Sorry, your objective, blanking. You're going to put all of that in there, and then that's week 6. If you are struggling with a resume template that you feel like is modern, helpful, that you like it, I would highly recommend actually using my Canva ATS approved resume template. It is below. It is super easy to update. And yes, it definitely is modern. It's sleek. It's honestly gorgeous. I'm not just saying this because my resume it's beautiful. It's 2 columns and it's modern. So it's a really great tool if you've been struggling with that. I'll link that below. And then week 7, you're actually going to start interview prep, right? So now that you know all those skills and everything that's needed for the position, you want to start going through all of the potential questions that would come up. You can look online for some samples, but you want to start to practice and write out your interview answer questions for those. I have plenty of resources on YouTube for interview training, so I'm not going to go through that now because the video is kind of already a little bit long, but essentially that's going to help you, and I'll probably link the playlist somewhere below. Cool. And number 8, week 8 is when you start applying. You'll be like, week 8? How many is 8 weeks? You got this. Follow the process week by week, and as soon as you get that resume done, you're going to start applying. It's going to give you enough time to pivot and change your resume if you're not getting the results that you want before you get into this skill building type thing that you're moving into month 3, okay? So that was the end of the 60 days. So let's get into the last 30 days and 90 days. And I will tell you that if you're following this process and you've already started applying, then most likely you are going to be able to round out your job search in that 90 days. I know it's crazy, my clients have done it, but it really works. Just go through it step by step. Okay, So number 9 is that you're going to go back to those gaps. Like you're going to say, okay, what didn't I have in that list? And you're going to create a professional development plan. Again, not going to go into professional development plans, but you're trying to find a way that you can use opportunities available to you. So whether that's training, shadowing, working with people in the HR field, however you feel like is going to help you getting, going back to school. Like I don't recommend all of that because sometimes not necessary, but like you could go back to school. You're going to find opportunities for you to be able to develop those skills so that you can move forward. So I'm going to link the career action planner that's going to help you do that, as well as the gap analysis in the comments below or in the description below. You can download it. Okay. Okay, so on week 10 is when you are going to create a job search strategy. So keep in mind, you're only going to pick one of these, and it can either be networking, like I mentioned earlier, skill building, researching, or enlisting a mentor. And so all of those things are going to be things that develop and support you as you move along. And again, you're not waiting till all of this is done. You're already applying while this is happening, but it really gives you that additional boost in your search to leverage these things as you go. And again, it's super helpful. Okay, so as I mentioned, for those who want to DIY their job search, this whole list is going to be below, as well as all the other resources that I mentioned today. However, if you have been trying to transition into human resources for quite a while unsuccessfully, or you really want to work with somebody who has been in human resources and who has also coached many Black women into making that transition over the years, then you should schedule a career clarity chat with me. And the great thing about doing the chat is that, one, you can share with me all of the things that are going on in your career right now, where you want to be in this recruitment, talent acquisition journey, and tell me any of the things that you're really challenged or struggling with. And we're going to talk about them, and I'm going to give you some advice. And if those things really make sense, then I'm going to want to work with you. So I'm going to share with you my coaching program and my mentoring program that, yes, follows this strategy and has been successful in helping my careers make that career pivot in 90 days, okay? And so, all of that being said, it's no pressure. You can schedule a call below. They're only 15 minutes, and they're super, super valuable and really help other individuals get a lot of clarity. So if you'd like to chat, go ahead, click the button below, schedule a call with me, and yeah, we'll have fun. The link below. So yeah, okay, bye. I'm tired of talking. Are you tired of listening to me? Because I really went in on this recruitment journey, and I really hope that it helped you. Again, my goal is really to see Black women have the type of impact that they want in their career. I think one of the best ways that we can really diversify and create a better place for other Black women in the future to be a good ancestor is to start the process of entering these fields, right, that have such high impact, such as human resources, right, hiring the best talent, hiring diverse talent, hiring people who are going to really make change in a company and do good. And so I hope that this video helps you on your journey to do good, help the world do great things, recruit all the best talent in the country, but not the ones I'm recruiting. Back off, okay? Okay? Because I already have that crown. No, I'm just kidding. But I hope this video was helpful. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. If you know another beautiful Black woman who is looking to transition to HR, go ahead and share that with them. And all of that being said, I'm wishing you all of the best success and using this information to really, really, really advance your career. And ma'am, don't be stubborn. Go ahead and make the investment of your time and energy. I promise it's going to pay off. So go ahead and schedule that career clarity chat with me. It's completely free. Okay. Oh, and yeah, I'm going to link a HR playlist here or there. I don't really remember which side it's on, but I'll see y'all next time. Bye.